Every year, we see a new crop of talent drafted into the NBA, and specifically at the top of each draft is where the players that have the most expectations tend to fall. Because they're drafted so early on in the lottery, it's believed they're expected to become productive members of a rotation, giving their teams quality minutes, regardless of whether or not they become a star player. If they can't even live up to that, however, then after a few years of disappointing play, they risk being labeled the B word, being bust. Of course, you have to give these players time to develop, but if no improvement is shown after a few years, then they definitely begin to approach that status. For today's video, we'll be discussing 7 players in particular who are in desperate need of a breakout year this season, because to this point, their careers have been pretty disappointing. Before we start though, it turns out about 68% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, because not only would it help out a ton, but I would also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first player that desperately needs a turnaround year this upcoming season is Thon Maker, who recently signed a deal with the Cleveland Cavaliers. When Thon was drafted, he was so intriguing not only because of his raw skill set, but because of his freakishly high upside he seemed to have because of what he brought to the table. As a young big man, he showed off a knack for blocking shots on defense, and then on offense, he could handle the ball like a guard and score both inside and out. However, since he's arrived in the NBA, that really hasn't translated all that much, and that raw skill set that once looked so promising has yet to develop, and 4 years into his career, he's regressed as an end-of-the-bench player, putting up an unimpressive 5 points and 3 rebounds per game last season. The physicality of the league seems to be too much for him, as he's struggled putting on weight in his time in the league, and his perimeter game never quite translated either, only ever being a below-average shooter. He signed with the Cavaliers for this upcoming season, but he's on a non-guaranteed contract, meaning that if he wants his NBA career to continue, he needs to really impress in training camp, which is a situation you never want to see from a former top 10 pick. The next player we'll be discussing that needs a big year to salvage their career is Knox of the New York Knicks. Now, young players struggling is nothing new in the NBA, especially with one-and-done prospects that come into the NBA as teenagers, but the extent to which Knox has struggled is on another level that simply cannot be ignored. From year 1 to year 2 last year, he regressed so badly to the point where, and I promise I'm not exaggerating, there was an argument that he might have been the worst player in the entire league that was receiving regular minutes in a rotation, with both his per-game averages and the advanced analytics pointing towards this. His scoring average was cut in half to only 6 points per game, and his efficiency as a scorer has been dreadful, shooting 36% from the field and 32% from 3. On top of that, his defense has been such a struggle that he also ranked near the bottom of the league in most of those metrics as well. Obviously, he is still young, being only 21 years old, but he will need to pick things up as soon as possible, otherwise it might turn into a waste of a top 10 pick for the Knicks. The next player that is entering this season in need of a turnaround year is Dunn of the Atlanta Hawks. Dunn came into the NBA labeled as one of the most NBA-ready players of the 2016 draft class, yet here we are 4 years later, and if anything, he's regressed as a player. Before I say anything else though, I have to first mention that his perimeter defense is absolutely sensational, and his ability to shut down opposing guards in that regard is top quality. However, his struggles come on the offensive side of things. He was the starting point guard for the Chicago Bulls for most of the time he spent there, and over the 3 years, he's seen his numbers decline every season, leading to last year where he put up a mere 7 points and 3 assists per game while shooting 44% from the field and an ugly 26% from 3. He's just not the floor general that he was hyped up to be when he was taken early in the lottery back then, and now in Atlanta, he's likely going to be used more as a defensive specialist off the bench. He can still carve out a solid role as such by doing this, but it's still a bit disappointing that he isn't a more well-balanced contributor. The next player in need of a big turnaround season this year is Dennis Smith Jr. of the New York Knicks. Smith is yet another young player who, through 3 years of his career, has actually regressed a ton, capping it all off with a disastrous season last year where he put up only 5 points and 3 assists per game while shooting the ball 34% from the field and only 29% from 3. Coming into the league, Smith's ticket to success was built on his elite athleticism as one of the most explosive guards in the draft class and expected to be someone who could get to the rim and finish with ease because of that explosiveness. But there's a lot that holds him back from doing this. For one, he's not a threat to shoot from the perimeter almost at all. Secondly, his shot selection overall has proven to be poor throughout his career. And third, injuries have hampered his play as well. He's a very talented young player, but the consistency on both ends is lacking, and he makes too many mental mistakes. If he can put it all together this year, then he definitely does still have a spot in the league, but it's now or never for him entering free agency next season. The next player that needs to have a breakout year this season is actually Smith and Knox's teammate, Frank Ntilikina. Now, I swear I'm not picking on the Knicks players on purpose, they just happen to have a lot of guys in this category. Since Frank's career started, he's been basically the same player all 3 years, putting up about 6 points and 3 assists per game in all 3 seasons while being used primarily as a lockdown defender off the bench for the team. Defensively, he brings a ton of value, no question, but offensively, he's still wildly inconsistent. His efficiency as a shooter and a scorer is worrisome, and he's not much of a creator. This has to be the year that he shows he can be more than a defensive specialist, because if he does show improvement, the trajectory of his career moving forward could be so much greater, but until that happens, he's just a one-dimensional role player. Next up for discussion as a player entering a big year to set the tone for the remainder of his career is Mo Bamba of the Orlando Magic. Bamba's size, length, and mobility while in college enticed NBA scouts in a huge way, enough to see his name called 6th overall in 2018. He was still quite raw overall at the time, specializing as a rim protector and shot blocker, and now 2 years later, he's still very raw overall while specializing as a shot blocker. Despite being taken so early on, his minutes from year 1 to year 2 actually reduced, as did his overall production, and to this point, he has yet to make a real impact in the league. He's another thin young player that needs to add weight, especially as a big man, to be able to bang with the other big guys that can overpower him in the league, and that aspect alone could make or break his development like it did for Thon Maker. He's got the length, wingspan, and ability as a rim protector, but he'll need to be able to withstand the physicality of a long NBA season. And finally, the last player we'll be discussing today in need of a big breakout season to salvage his career is Josh Jackson of the Detroit Pistons. As has been a trend in this video, for obvious reasons, Jackson too has found himself regressing as a player in each of his 3 seasons as a pro. In Phoenix, he put up decent numbers on a bad team, making his production feel empty. Then last year, he got traded to Memphis, where he actually spent most of the year in the G League. Mind you, this is a former top 5 pick playing in the G League in year 3. Now in Detroit, there is an opportunity for him to earn a role and prove himself, as the team should be shifting more towards a rebuild in the near future, but at the same time, he's going to have guys like Jeremy Grant, rookie Saddiq Bey, and Sekou Doumbouya fighting for minutes at his position as well, so the climb back into the rotation will not be easy. He came into the NBA labeled as a lockdown defender, yet his defense thus far has been hit or miss. So if it takes a leap there, that could earn him some bigger minutes. And then offensively, he, like most I've discussed today, struggles in regards to efficiency as an overall offensive contributor. Overall though, the players I've discussed in this video all have a lot of talent, but making it in the NBA takes a lot more than just pure talent to find success. So if they can put it all together this year, then I still believe in them. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the players we discussed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.